So how's the WFD kind of like influenced like your musical family unit? Like how's that played a part?
Oh well, it was very important to Matt, of course. At the very beginning, it was kind of his road into the door.
Right.
In this day and time, I think competitions and this internet proactive type of environment is part of how you guys get your starts now.
Right.
In my time, it was something different. We didn't have the internet and those kind of things. WFD is very tied into the internet, as is the Guitar Center drum offs and all these other things. And then WFD was what Matt chose because the Guitar Center drum off seemed to be something else. That seemed to be Tony Royster and the gospel drummers and that kind of gimmick. And this is another kind of gimmick, although it's a good gimmick, in that it teaches you rudimental skills and it gets you tough for the business. This got Matt in the door, and meeting these people and being able to go to NAMM all the time, and by doing that you see people, and you get in the internet, and then this internet activity starts to go into these chat forums and Drummer World and all of that kind of stuff. And that seems to be the wave of the future. And I thought like WFD and some of these other organizations seem to understand that very early on. And for good and bad, it seems to influence the direction you go. But the bad actually turns into the good because really the bad stuff is the stuff that we used to learn the hard way.
Right.
Like it used to cost us money, or or somebody would steal from us. At least with the internet, it's harmless in that you get toughened up, but you're not really getting hurt.
Right.
And over the last 4 or 5 years when Matt got involved, it was at the peak. And that's when all the crazy people were out there saying all these bad things about it who didn't really understand it.
Right.
Or did understand it and were attacking it for other reasons. So I think it's toughened him up, and it definitely got him into the business. And now he's been able to do other things. And I think this was probably the door that you have to open now. And it's a different door than it was in my time.
Right. So as a player, how do you think the drummometer helps with technique and stuff like that? Like how does is there a way that it betters you as a player overall, or?
Well, what I've noticed about it, first of all, I was a band director for many years, and I always started with a single stroke issue. And the reason the single stroke is important to me as a band leader is, and this is the thing that a lot of drummers don't seem to understand. As a band leader, my number one problem with drummers is if I'm playing an extended job, they start dragging tempos after about the second or third set. One thing that's different from my time maybe than your time now, the sets are smaller. Everybody does a more limited show. They play about an hour and 15 minutes. I still remember the times in New Orleans when everybody was playing 5-hour jobs.
Right.
And at that time, as a band leader, it was very common around the middle of that third set, the drummer just went to pieces. And part of that was he didn't have those technical fundamentals that began with a single stroke. Because the thing about a single stroke that people seem to forget, single stroke builds endurance.
Right.
And the endurance factor is very, very important. It's not about speed, it's not a gimmick. If you do the single stroke properly, your endurance is at a certain level where I'm happy at the end of the set with the drummer. Most drummers are hired really for the long term by how well they start and finish the gig.
Right.
Everybody can start the gig well, but finishing the gig is a lot more difficult.
Yes.
And I found that this whole phenomenon with the WFD is really building endurance with the drummers. And I also noticed that when Matt started messing around with it, it's just playing got cleaner. His playing got cleaner because when I noticed a lot of guys will go right to hybrid rudiments and all this drum corps stuff, and their singles really aren't that good. You've got to play the single for hour after hour after hour. And guys are very impatient about that. And I think what WFD has done is it brought things back to basics. And as a band leader who watches and appreciates drummers, I want the drummers to get a little cleaner because I think sometimes there's cart before the horse.
Right.
And for me, bringing this back to basics has helped clean the thing up and bring it back to where people are starting to think about the things they should have done in the very beginning of their careers.
So last question, just for fun, like what's the thing that you like seeing the most, like when you're participating in a WFD event? Like, is it the crowd response? Is it just the overall competition? Like, what is it that sticks out to you most?
Oh, I just like that little meter running and running and running. And the whole thing, it's almost like the Wheel of Fortune. You don't know where it's going to end.
Right.
And after a while, when you see certain guys and you see their techniques, and I'm a fan now. I love watching it. And just watching the techniques, and you're just wondering where that meter's going to go. And I remember when I had the big one in Michigan, the crowd is screaming and everything, and really what they're screaming about is they're wondering where that meter's going to go.
Right.
And to me, that's just fascinating, and it's also interesting to me that the really good ones, it seems to be about the same place every time.
Yeah.
Because there's a certain amount of consistency there. So no, I'm like everybody else. I just like the counter doing this thing.
Cool. Well, thank you for talking to us today, and I guess we'll see you around the contest.
My pleasure.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's a good thing.